Hello, this is me, the Blue Dragon, yet again on another episode of the Red Pill of the Universe. And so, this time I'm going to talk about about galaxies, or in this case, a hypothesis that I created on earlier this year on January 13th, 2023. And so one of the things that I have realized with galaxies is that they resemble a very close resemblance to that of hurricanes. And so many people think that black holes exist, and why not? Well, the issue about that is that we all say black holes exist because of general relativity or whatever. Well, the thing about that is that you don't need general relativity to know or understand about galaxy formation. The thing is that saying black holes. Also, another thing is that saying that black holes bend time and space is just utter ludicrous. It's fake. Saying that black holes bend space and time is just as ridiculous as saying tornadoes bend space and time. It's fake. It doesn't happen. But unfortunately, there are many people that believe this fact, even though it could very well be fake. And so one of the things that I have realized is that hurricanes and galaxies look very similar. I just need to Alright, so I found some stuff that I think you might be interested in. The theory that I call it was a theory that I personally created on January 15th, 2023, earlier this year. I call it the GHCH, or the Galaxy Hurricane Creation Hypothesis. As by looking at hurricanes, I have realized that hurricanes and galaxies look very similar. And so in this recording, I will explain why that is the case. For one, we say, this is part of a black hole image, or at least what we think is supposedly a black hole. From the James Webb Telescope, this is an image of what we have found to be from our telescope right here. As you can see, this is a real image of what we think is supposedly a black hole. However, by looking deeper into the investigation as to what this image actually could be, is that I have realized that this image could be nothing more of a possible solar eclipse. And the reason why I think that, and as to what this actually is a solar eclipse, is that the reason why is because if you look at the image, it's too blurry to determine what the object actually is. There is no clear evidence as to that this is a full-on black hole. The image is too blurry to determine what the object even is. And even if it is true that this object is a so-called object or whatever, the thing is that what we're looking at is actually 3D, which means that to our perspective, what we seem, or to the illusion, is that how we see it is in 2D. This black hole image, whatever. However, what we don't think is that this object right here is a star, and this dark object right here is just another celestial object, whether it be a planet, a star, an asteroid, or whatever. And so to back this theory up is that this place right, these images may not be black holes at all, but what we're looking at is possibly the illusion of a black hole, of another solar eclipse that's happening in another galaxy or whatever. And to back this theory up, or this hypothesis up, is that as you see right here, this object right here is possibly another star, and this object right here is covering up that star, or in this case, whether it be a moon, a planet, or whatever, is covering it up. And so to our perspective, it looks like a black hole, when the truth is that if you look more deep into it, it's actually not a black hole. In fact, it could be of a solar eclipse. As for this is what we think is a black hole. This is what we think of how the universe is, and this matches almost just like it. However, the thing is that what people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Stephen Hawking fail to explain is that general relativity alone does not mean black holes exist. They both fail to explain the chemistry behind black holes. As for if black holes exist from a star is made of chemicals like hydrogen and helium, etc. Saying that black holes exist just because of gravity or general relativity doesn't mean anything when it comes to the physical evidence of black holes. It doesn't mean anything. For black holes to exist, they need a chemical composition. As for what is the chemistry behind black holes, what elements make up black holes? And that's the flaw that they fail to explain. And so as you see, the images look very similar. A dark center, and a ring. You could argue that this image is a black hole. Well, the problem is that this image right here, the real image that we have taken from the James Webb Telescope, is too blurry. It's too blurry to determine what the object even is. Even so, as I mentioned before, scientists have failed to explain what elements create a black hole, like what's the chemistry behind it. You can't just say general relativity and just call it a day. It doesn't work. That's not how the universe works. Even so, this image right here, which is the real image of a so-called celestial object, could be nothing more of a faraway solar eclipse. As I mentioned before, this right here is a solar eclipse. It may not be exact, but it has the same image of a star surrounding it as a ring in a center, which means that this object right here of how we think is a black hole is actually could be rather nothing more of just a regular solar eclipse. And to back this theory up is that as you see right here, as a ring around a celestial object like a star, and this right here is the same thing, a celestial object like a star right here. And so as an object moved towards the sun, or is blocking our view from the sun, it casts a shadow of the object. Like this celestial object is casting a shadow or making a solar eclipse around the sun. This celestial object is going around the sun, and so since we can't see it, the illusion that is created from 2D space is a black hole. But that's not how reality is. And so from our perspective, it looks like a black hole when the truth is that it's nothing more of just a solar eclipse. and so the thing is that this image right here looks really resemblant to this image right here. So the thing is black holes don't exist. And so you could say black holes don't exist, and how does the galaxy move? Well, the same way that I have realized that hurricanes move in the atmosphere, the same way that galaxies move through space. As we know for sure that there are things called solar winds. And so here are some few real small animations as to galaxy formation. As you can see, like some of these images or these little GIFs, as you call it, a galaxy, as you can see, a hurricane has arms. The eye, or the middle of every single hurricane that is created, and as you can see, and if you know about hurricane, or if you're someone who understands hurricane formations, you would understand that the most intense part of a hurricane is the center, or the eye wall. Now when you compare it to when you see like this image right here, the tendrils, the circular shape, now when you compare it to galaxies, now for these galaxies, when it comes to these certain GIFs, this is misleading. Like this thing right here, this is definitely an artist's interpretation. This is not on how reality is. This is totally an artist's interpretation of how galaxies should move, when really that's not the case. This is a more accurate version. As you see, that galaxy right there, a disc-like shape. As you can see, the same analogy points to just like that of a hurricane. The arms, the circular motion, even the center almost looks fairly identical to a hurricane, as you can see. And so as you can see in this little simulation right here, or in this little satellite photo or this video, is that hurricanes can move clockwise or counterclockwise. Galaxies could possibly also do the same. They can move counterclockwise or they can move clockwise. It just depends on how the galaxy was created. Here's a little other if I can find the good one here. See, like this right here, this is totally false. This is not an accurate simulation of how black holes are created. This is only just an illusion. And in fact, if you say that everything is gobbled up, why isn't this area? It's just like, if you say everything is gobbled up by black holes, then why isn't this part gobbled up then? The same thing is that, like, you see all the stuff around this area is still intact. And so if black holes are the so-called monsters we think they are, it wouldn't make sense as to why this area is still intact. And so the irony is that I have realized is that, as you see right here, or in this case, not so even galaxy, like, and so when you look at certain galaxies like this one, it's not a, is that if you see, when when you compare it to a hurricane is that you would see the similarities are very similar. They are both in a flat disc-like shape. They both have like these little tendrils depending on the galaxy type, and they could either move counterclockwise or clockwise, and they each have a so-called eye wall or an eye of the center. Like the eye of a hurricane is at the center, just like the eye of a hurricane, or I mean a galaxy, is at the center. In fact, and so the thing is that the irony, what I have realized, is that the most energy in a hurricane is by the center, which means that for a galaxy, the most energy, or what I would like to say, the most star formation would be near the center. The further you go out from the eye wall or towards the center, the less star formation or the less energy there is. And so, no matter how far away that some of these galaxies are, is that if we want to take up some real images, like this one right here, this is a real images from the James Webb Telescope. And I don't know if you guys can see it that well, but if you take a look at, if you can try to zoom in on every single one of these dots is a galaxy. And no matter how far away they are, as you can see, no matter how far away they seem to be, this one, 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 etc. Every single one of these galaxies is a disc-like shape. There are no cone-shaped galaxies. Many people think that galaxies are like whirlpools. And so many people think that whirlpools are galaxies. Well, the thing is that if you could see well, you could, and so some people think that whirlpools are also like galaxies, as the same structure and the same laws of physics apply. As you see, the laws of physics still apply, just like that of a galaxy. However, the thing about whirlpools is that you're using an entire body of liquid to create them. When it comes to galaxies, they're made of gas. They're mostly made of gas and other substances. They're not made of liquid. Many whirlpools, especially if not yet all of them, like this one right here, this whirlpool, this one right here, this whirlpool, as you see right here, or even some of these, like this one right here, this one right here, as you can see, this one, as you see, are only made of water. There's no gas, there's no solids, there's no anything. But when you compare it to that of a hurricane, like this, or like this one right here, you can clearly see the similarities. Hurricanes are made of gas. Galaxies are made of basically star formation or gas. And so as you see, and so based on the picture that I have showed you, if I can find it. Based on the pictures, or this one right here, as you see, there is no cone shape. if galaxies had a cone, we would clearly be able to see it, but we don't. And so that just proves it to you that black holes don't exist. As for if they did, we would have already found out that the chemical composition of what creates a black hole. And so the irony is that why black holes don't exist is that hurricanes and galaxies look very similar when it comes to physical structure. And so it's like the same thing as like humans and apes. They are both different, but the physical characteristics are very similar. And so the irony about that is that if hurricanes don't have black holes, as you see from this close-up one right here, it's just empty space. So what makes you think that galaxies are any different? Another thing is that here's a different way of how galaxies are created by using different wavelengths. And so, as you see, as I specifically stated, the middle of the center of every galaxy is going to have the most energy, just like that of a hurricane, or just like that of a hurricane. The central point of a hurricane is going to have the most energy. And so as you see from these galaxies, of these different galaxy types, most of the energy is compacted within the center, which also proves my point is that most of the energy is just like that of a hurricane. Most of the energy or star formation is near the center. And as you go further out of the arm, the less star formation and the less energy is accumulated. So that just also proves it to you. That just proves my point that black holes don't exist. And so the thing about like what Neil deGrasse Tyson and Stephen Hawking saying about black holes being a thing could be very well be falsified. Is that black holes don't exist. Here are some this is how people think black holes work, is that everything just goes to the center and then just gets swallowed up whatsoever. However, a flaw within this design is that this design is flawed because it doesn't explain the spiral shape or the disc-like shape. It doesn't explain why the galaxy has like these little arms right here. As you can clearly see with the cursor, is that it has like these little arms. However, when you apply it to that of a hurricane, if I can find that image, as you see from this one, you can clearly see that instead of everything just going down to the center, everything has a circular motion. And so, just like that of a hurricane, here's an infrared image of one I got from Hurricane Lee from Reed Timmer's live cast on Hurricane Lee that happened not too long ago. The same physics apply. As you see, hurricanes have a circular motion. It's not like everything just goes to the center and then that's it. And so the model why black holes exist is flawed because it's not just everything just goes to the center and then that's it. Because how can you explain the circular motion of galaxies? How can you explain the arms? The same thing happens with galaxies. The circular motion, the little arms right here, just like this model right here. You see, no black hole, a circular disk, these little arms, and every single galaxy has its own unique feature. And so, you don't need a black hole to determine the whole galaxy. What you need to determine of how the galaxy moves is like that of a hurricane. You can't just focus on the centerpiece and then that's it. You need to examine the whole object itself. That's like saying, oh, I know a hurricane based on the center. You can't. You need to look at the whole object. Just like this image right here from Hurricane Lee, you need to look at the whole object. For galaxies, it's no different. To understand how the galaxies work is that you have to look at the whole image of galaxies. You can't just say black holes and then that's it. So, based on how these two models exist, or how these two models are, the one that correlates to understand why galaxies have a spiral disk formation is that of how galaxies are, is that rather by collision or creation, somehow the physics of how the physics of the universe are, especially with working with the force of gravity, enables them to create this disk-like shape. I don't know exactly to explain it why. As for the theory itself that I created is incomplete. I can't fully explain why this happens, or how it happens, or why planets can create this. All I can tell you is that for one, black holes are not existent, or should I say they may not even exist. As for, it's like the illusion of galaxies is that because there is like the illusion of black holes is like that of a hurricane. We can only see hurricanes because of the light pointed directly at them, and as we see that there is no center. With galaxies, it is no different. It's just that everything is so far away. It's like that to us. Everything is all tightly packed right here, and we call it a black hole. But the more you look deeper into it, these images right here are like light years away. It's just that this galaxy is so big, and so to us is that there could be right here in the center is where many of the star formation is. The further you get out of that ring or the center, you have less star formation. And so based on how gravity works around these objects, or how gravity works in physics work around galaxies, the reason why that you have the spiral formation is based on how the way that gravity works and the way that physics works, based on how the object is moving in a circular motion like this. There is no black hole where everything just eats everything up. It's the circular motion like this that keeps the galaxy in motion, this one right here. And so as you see, you don't need a black hole to make the object move. The closer you are to the center, the faster the object spins. But as you get further away from the center, the slower the energy becomes, which means that right here you have a lot of dust, which means a lot of star formation is happening. But if you get further away, the less star formation and the less light you see. That's why as we see, when galaxies have a lot of light near the center and not a lot of light towards the outside. And so that's another thing when it comes to galaxies, is that for people like astrophysicists say that black holes exist, yet they fail to explain the chemical composition of black holes. You can't just say black holes exist because of general relativity, because words mean nothing. For words are just concept. No element makes words or numbers. To something to make sense, you have to understand chemistry. As for black holes, you need to explain what elements make black holes. And so that's the flaw that they keep on, is that the flaw that they don't understand or can't accept. So when it comes to galaxies, every single one of these little dots is a galaxy. And this is an artist interpretation. There are a lot of artist stuff on Facebook, Twitter, if not yet on YouTube, about galaxies and black holes. this is an artist's interpretation of basically an area or a background. However, see, like this one right here, many like this object right here is completely an artist's interpretation. This planet right here, an artist's interpretation. Most of these objects right here are based on an art, like this one right here, an artist's interpretation. This is not an actual image. This is just an artist's interpretation of a galaxy. If you want the real deal, this is the real deal. There is no, and as you see, just like this one, there is no black hole. It's the same thing happens with hurricanes. The same disc-like shape, the same the arms and the tendrils, and the center. And so and so as you see, black holes are not part of the picture. And so another thing is that how galaxies are is that, as I mentioned before, is that black holes is that how redshift alone doesn't mean distance. And so, and a little experiment I have is with these two batteries, meaning, and as a representation of galaxies. And so, as you obviously they're not magnets, but it's the best I can do. And so, as you see, and so as you see right here, my room would be the vacuum of space. As you see, these two batteries would be the representation of galaxies. As these galaxies move and collide with one another, the energy or the gravitational pull becomes ever stronger, which means that gravity increases. It doesn't decrease, it increases. And considering the fact that our Milky Way will collide with Andromeda, it seems to us that the illusion that space is expanding or accelerating seems to be logical, when really the truth is that we live in a galaxy. It's rotating times basically the Earth's rotation every 24 hours and the Earth's orbit every 360 to 365 days. And so we're not stationary. We basically glide through space all the time. And so you can do this with spinning magnets. And so, or if you spin a magnet close to each other, they will eventually collide. The same thing with galaxies. In fact, we have even seen proof of this. We have seen proof of this. As two galaxies collide, the gravity between them becomes even stronger. Or like here's a little simulation between our Milky Way and Andromeda. As our galaxies collide, the gravity between them increases and accelerates. They will smash, and so they will expand and then come back, expand, then contract, until that the forces of gravity makes them spin in whatever direction that may be, clockwise and counterclockwise, creating new stars and other formation. And so we see this, all the time. The gravity happens mostly right here, and the gravity that happens most on this galaxy is right here. Eventually, these galaxies will collide, creating a bigger, if not yet robust, galaxy. And so, with this theory put to mind, is that what I can explain to you is that I can explain the formation. I can fully explain the shape of galaxies. However, I cannot fully understand the process of galaxies. As for the theory itself, is incomplete. But based on what I have learned about galaxies and going deep into the investigation, the way that black holes are is that they just may not exist. They just may not exist at all. So don't worry about black holes being a thing, because what's there to worry about if it's not a thing? Just ridiculous. So based on how this observation is, I don't think that black holes are that something to concern about us, for they may not even exist. And so the theory that I have personally came up with is called the GHCH, or called the Galaxy Hurricane Creation Hypothesis. Is that however galaxies are created is that by some solar winds or dust, and how gravity is involved. I can't fully tell you why it happens or go into detail about that, because I don't understand it completely. The theory itself is incomplete. But the theory can explain why galaxies can collide with one another due to the nature of gravity. Galaxies spin because of how the physics of how like that of a hurricane work. You don't necessarily need to go into astronomy to understand galaxy formation. If you really want to understand somewhat galaxy formation, just look at the physics of a hurricane. It's that simple. So basically, so to top it all off, I don't think that, based on what I have found, I do not think that black holes exist. As for one, we have failed to find any logical proof that they do. The chemical composition of hurricanes looks very similar to that of galaxies. And so the irony about that, if hurricanes don't have black holes, why should galaxies be any different? And another thing that scientists fail to explain about galaxies and black holes is that they fail to explain the chemical composition of them. Is that if black holes exist, what's the chemistry? Saying that they exist because of general relativity is completely flawed. As for like, okay, they exist because of general relativity, and what? That's it. Like, why is the galaxy in a spiral shape? Why is it, like, what's the chemical composition? Like, that's the part that you need to answer, or otherwise your hypothesis is flawed. And so this hypothesis that I have created is incomplete. However, it does explain why galaxies operate the way that they do. You don't need a black hole for simply galaxy formation. It also explains the physical characteristics of them between the spiral and the arms. And so, yeah, that's frankly about it. While I will continue to think about this process as for to get more of an understanding about this theory, I do hope that some of you actually paid attention and liked the video. Feel free to dislike it. Feel free to like it. It's your choice, whatever. And so, that's frankly about it. While I said it many times that this theory is incomplete, I am teaching myself of how to upgrade this theory or to make it more robust. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this little lesson. Feel free to give it a thumbs up. And next lesson, I will talk about next video, I will talk about debunking the science behind God and debunking about the simulation hypothesis. Alright, enjoy the video. Thanks.